Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Trebas Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. How much should local law enforcement support federal agents in deportation sweeps? That is a question the El Cajon City Council is grappling with today. And KPBS reporter John Carroll is live at El Cajon City Hall, where the council has a big decision to make this afternoon. And John, I understand that this has to do with a perceived conflict between federal and state law.
You're right about that, Maya. First, let me just do a little scene setter for you. We are outside of the City Council chambers, and as you can see, there's an overflow crowd out here. It is really packed in there. We'll show you that in just a second. But as you were saying, that is correct. It was back in December, El Cajon Mayor Bill Wells and Councilman Phil Ortiz put an item on the agenda seeking clarification from State Attorney General Rob Bonta on how to both follow federal immigration law and not to run afoul of California Senate Bill 54. That law basically forbids local police from cooperating with federal authorities in immigration enforcement. Now, take a look inside what it looks like inside the El Cajon City Council chambers. It is packed this afternoon, packed to the rafters. Some council members wanted to revise the request, so now city staff has come back with two options for them. One is to just wait and hope federal and state authorities work out any inconsistencies between state and federal law. The other would result in a resolution that seeks additional clarification from state and federal officials on the inconsistencies in their respective immigration laws and policies. Now, the city's intent, will also declare the city's intent to ensure the public safety of all residents, and it asserts the city's intent to comply with federal immigration law to the legal extent permissible under SB 54 and other applicable laws to remove violent criminals from the community. Before the meeting, I spoke with El Cajon Mayor Bill Wells. He says the resolution asking for clarification is needed, and he says he conveyed that to the new border czar Tom Homan recently. We'll hear from him first. Then you'll hear from Ilka Weston, an El Cajon native. She says the state has already made its position clear.
You can't ask us to go against the state of California unless you indemnify us in some way. And I want you to come back with a plan to allow us to be following the rule of law, but also not put our employees and our city in harm's way.
When we have people that are on city council going against even our police departments that will not partake in this because of their chief of police, it interrupts the course of a happy environment. We're all working and living together. We do not need to, one, give more work to our officers in El Cajon, and two, the mayor has no right to try to create this kind of hate.
Public testimony at about 3:30. There were 81 people signed up to speak on this measure, and that may have very well risen since then. So you do the math. They're going to be here for a while into the evening. I'm going to go back in there and buttonhole the city clerk, give her my card, and make sure that we find out whatever they decide, and then we will convey that to you on kpbs.org. Live tonight in El Cajon, John Carroll, KPBS News.
An increase of immigration enforcement presence is making some community members nervous and fearful, and faith leaders are looking for guidance on how to respond to members of their congregation sharing their concerns. KPBS North County reporter Tanya Thorne has more.
Maya, we just left the Escondido Police Department, where faith leaders held a meeting with police captains to address some of their concerns. Now, this is a meeting that happens every month, but today's topic was on immigration and the enforcement operations happening throughout different communities. Faith leaders said their congregations are expressing fear, and that was evident in the drop of attendance some experienced this past Sunday. We spoke to Agner Medrano, the pastor of Victory Outreach Church.
You know, with all the stuff that's going on in our country, in our nation, some of them are some of the congregations, not all of them, but some of the congregations are feeling maybe the stress, maybe even the fear from what's happening with immigration. And some of the pastors really, they seen that come to play this Sunday with some people were missing from church. They didn't want to go because of the fear or misinformation that is out there also, you know?
Medrano, along with the faith leaders in attendance, wanted clarification from the Escondido Police Department on their role and how to respond to their communities.
The police have made it very clear that they are following what California law is, and they are not working with immigration here in Escondido. They cannot speak for other law enforcement agencies, but certainly here in Escondido, that's what's going on. I personally spoke with the chief yesterday, and that was the message that I received also.
That was Escondido Council member Joe Garcia. He said the city and police department will be issuing a statement to set the record clear on their role during federal immigration enforcement. Police captains said they have no control or notification of federal operations happening in their communities. But Maya, the biggest takeaway from this meeting was city leaders and police officers offering themselves to these faith leaders to come and speak to their congregations directly about what their roles are and offer some reassurance and resources during these difficult times. This is also an effort to help stop the spread of misinformation that often moves quickly on social media. Live from the North County Bureau, Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
Well, looking ahead to tonight, we're going to be dropping down to the low 50s here in San Diego. Now, we will have a few showers in place, but overall not going to be a washout. It's going to be mostly a drying trend here on out. Now, we'll tell you how warm temperatures are going to get as we head into the weekend.
A sudden halt on federal assistance funding today by the Trump administration is sending shockwaves across the country and the world. Minutes before it was set to take effect, a federal judge temporarily blocked the freeze. As Laura Aguirre explains, it could set the stage for a constitutional fight at the highest court.
It is a temporary pause, and the Office of Management and Budget is reviewing the federal funding that has been going out the door.
Democratic backlash swift and scathing.
Donald Trump has shut off billions, perhaps trillions of dollars that directly support states, cities, towns, schools, and most of all, American families.
The Appropriations Committee has voted bipartisan House, Senate, signed by the president, and this is law.
Appropriations governed by Article 1 of the U.S. Constitution, which essentially grants Congress the so-called power of the purse.
I spoke to my Attorney General this morning. She's head of the State Attorneys General Association. They're going to court right away.
An updated budget office memo sent out midday directs any agency impacted by the freeze to answer questions related to their purpose, such as aiding undocumented migrants, climate policy, diversity programs, or abortion.
It means no more funding for illegal DEI programs, for the Green New scam, for transgenderism and wokeness.
The funding memo specifically names Social Security and Medicare benefits as exempt, along with, quote, assistance provided directly to individuals.
It is the responsibility of this president and this administration to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars.
They need tax cuts for the ultra wealthy, and these cuts, they think, will fund them.
I'm Laura Aguirre for KPBS News.
In a new executive order, President Donald Trump ordered the Pentagon to revise its policies toward transgender service members, saying they do not meet the standards of military service. KPBS military reporter Andrew Dyer says the order is already facing its first legal challenge.
The executive order bans transgender individuals from serving in the military. It goes even further, saying that being transgender, quote, conflicts with a soldier's commitment to an honorable, truthful, and disciplined lifestyle. Sam Rodriguez is a second-class petty officer in the Navy who identifies as non-binary. They've been selected to commission as an officer in the Navy's Medical Corps. Rodriguez says they don't see any need for a ban.
As a whole, it's not a hostile environment at all. We show up, we do our job, we're treated just like any other service member.
An estimated 15,000 to 25,000 trans people serve in the military. Rodriguez says trans people want to serve just like anyone else.
You know, we show up every single day in positions from across every career field. and we contribute to the military, and we demonstrate merit, meeting rigorous standards and our performance and leadership and expertise in our jobs.
GLAAD Law and the National Center for Lesbian Rights filed suit in federal court today against the Trump administration, requesting an injunction against any new ban. Lambda Legal and the Human Rights Campaign say they will also challenge the ban in court. Trump's executive order gives the Pentagon 2 months to change its policy. Andrew Dyer, KPBS News.
I'm Jeff Bennett. Tonight on the NewsHour, the White House defends a sweeping freeze of federal funding as questions pour in about which programs are affected. That's at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Firefighters say they are nearing containment of the Border 2 fire as mop-up continues today. The fire is now 74% contained and has burned more than 6,600 acres burned. An evacuation order remained in effect for neighborhoods near the Otay Mountains. According to a Redfin study, nearly half of San Diegans rent their homes. With all of the recent wildfires in the area, KPBS reporter Melissa May tells us what rights renters have if they lose their home to wildfire.
This month alone, there's been several wildfires in San Diego County. A San Diego Fire Department representative confirms that there were no structural damages reported in the Bernardo or Gilman fires, but one unit in one apartment building was destroyed in the Friars fire. Gilberto Vera with Legal Aid Society of San Diego says the first thing a renter should do if their home is affected by a natural disaster like wildfire is contact their landlord and
be checking in with just the fire department and local code enforcement on whether it's safe to even go back into the property. Depending on the extent of the damage would be a very good first step.
If a renter's home is uninhabitable due to a wildfire, Vera explains under contract law, the lease agreement no longer exists.
That could mean that the contract has essentially automatically terminated because the property is completely destroyed. And that would relieve the tenant of their right to, or of their responsibility to pay rent, and then the landlord of the responsibility to provide the housing.
Vera says this means a landlord is not responsible for rehoming you, but says you are entitled to a prorated amount of rent and security deposit.
What should be returned to them, in full, except maybe if they owed any rent or fees from a prior period, but the landlord should not retain any of the security deposit for any damages caused by the fire.
California Department of Insurance Deputy Commissioner Tony Signorelli says if your personal property is even partially damaged due to wildfire, then you should file a claim with your renter's insurance company.
Let them come in, take a look, evaluate, whether there's a claim here for remediation, to a larger degree.
Signorelli says most renters' insurance coverage applies to personal property, but it also may cover other expenses.
It will pay for additional living expenses to relocate you, temporary living, for a certain period of time. It could be, in some cases, until the property is rebuilt.
Renters with any legal questions about their homes being destroyed by wildfire can reach out to Legal Aid Society of San Diego at lassd.org. Melissa May, KPBS News.
If you live in the Paradise Hills neighborhood of Southeast San Diego, you might remember this legendary art wall from the 1990s. For almost 30 years now, it's been vacant, but late last year, South Bay reporter Corey Suzuki says 3 high school friends reunited to bring it back to life.
The wall is at the top of Division Street, right where it curves upwards, away from the freeway and down into the neighborhood of Paradise Hills. It's kind of tucked away behind a big concrete phone pole across the street from a church. For decades, it was blank and a dusty gray. If you weren't from the neighborhood, you might have missed it. But today, the wall is bright and colorful.
The vegetables that we painted here are staples of the Ilocano diet.
Cars drive past as Ron Ricato points to the brand new mural that's there along the wall now.
We've got the squash, we got the ampalaya, we got the eggplant, the kamatis, calamansi. They're all fruits and vegetables that Filipinos use in their cooking.
Ricato is an artist who grew up in Paradise Hills. He spent weeks painting this mural with two friends. It shows traditional fruits and vegetables from the Philippines, like calamansi and ampalaya, and the crimson flag of the United Farm Workers Union, an homage to the farm workers' strikes of the 1960s. At the center is a saying in Tagalog, isang bagsak.
Isang bagsak, which literally translates to one down, meaning if one of us is down, that means that we're all down. And if one of us is up, that means all of us are up, representing a real communal spirit.
It's the first time that there's been a mural here in 30 years. Back in the 90s, though, Ricardo says he and his friends used to paint this wall all the time. They were going to high school just down the street.
The neighborhood was different. It was crazier. It was a little bit crazier, like, there was, the upstart of, like, gangs and drugs.
Paradise Hills was a red line neighborhood, a black and brown community that was systematically disinvested in. It was home to a big Filipino community, which Ricardo and his friends were part of. Ricardo says their immigrant parents weren't thinking about enrolling them in soccer or other activities. Instead, he and his friends turned to art.
The New York style subway graffiti, it was all brand new. So being a kid and seeing that, it was fresh, it was fresh. And it was like, oh man, like I want to do that.
Ricardo and his friends started looking for spots to paint. In Paradise Hills, there were only a few. There were some places towards Spring Valley. There was the side of the old Circle K liquor store. And then there was the wall at the top of Division Street.
This wall was like kind of at the center of everything.
Ramali Liquidon. He's like a cousin to Ricardo.
Like this is like one of the main streets off of the main freeways and to get into Paradise Hills, you have to kind of go down this street to get into the neighborhood of Paradise Hills. So everybody was coming in and out of this like passageway right here and seeing this wall every day that they would go to work, go to school and all that.
They gave themselves a crew name, JVC. Almost every month, they would put up a new mural on Division Street. They painted cartoon characters, messages, and portraits of friends who had passed away. When rival crews didn't approve, they would come and paint over their work.
This was almost like our social media back in the days.
Junior Inocencio was the third member of their crew. He says their work was starting to get attention in the neighborhood.
We were able to broadcast our post, but through artwork to the community. And a lot of the fellow writers out there at the time, they would take notice.
But others were taking notice too, including the cops. In 1993, they launched a major sting operation targeting graffiti artists across San Diego County. Officers posed as Hollywood producers working on a documentary. Eventually, they arrested 37 people, including Inocencio, who had just graduated from high school. Ricardo and Liquidon tried to keep painting after that, but soon they graduated too. Liquidon went to art school in Valencia and San Francisco. Inocencio had to go to court and do community service, and eventually became an art teacher. And back on Division Street, the wall was empty. Ricardo went to college in Long Beach and joined the Navy. Even on duty, he kept drawing, making sketches on printer paper and scanning them onto a computer whenever he got the chance. Finally, after decades away from home, he got orders back to San Diego.
Of course, I'm hitting up the old crew, and we're talking about the glory days or just catching up, and we're still, all of us still are, it's still a part of us. So we all are artists in certain ways, and we're talking about like that we should one day come back to this.
The wall on Division Street. Last year, Ricardo, Liquidon, and Inocencio got together with some old friends and began planning something new. In early October, the three of them started painting. Now, there's a new mural on Division Street, but it's different from the scenes they used to paint. This mural is focused on honoring the history of Filipino culture and the neighborhood.
We came out here, but this time we're growing up, more mature, so we want to reflect that, like what would be a good message to share with the community.
Ricardo says they didn't sign it. They wanted the focus to be on the message, not on themselves. But in the bottom right corner, they did stencil the letters of their old crew, JVC.
Can I ask, does that stand for something?
Well, JVC, we're back in the day when we were younger, it was the Juvenile Vandal Crew, right? I don't know what it stands for now.
A lot has changed since the 90s. The crew, the neighborhood. But some things are still the same, like an old brick wall, like a group of childhood friends, still trying to make the neighborhood a little more beautiful. Corey Suzuki, KPBS News.
Well, let's start you off with your headlines. First on the list, temperatures on the rise, so we'll see a little bit of a boost when it comes to that mercury. We are going to be drying out, though, through the week. Though, by the weekend, it is going to be quiet and a little warmer. Let's break this all down for you. Let's first start off with what's happening here tonight. We're dropping down to 44 in Oceanside, 51 San Diego. Again, we can see a shower or two there along the coast. Similar story as we head further inland when it comes to the temperatures, not necessarily the showers. Borrego Springs at 40, Mount Laguna a little bit cooler at 28. Now for tomorrow, we'll rise to the 60s with some sunshine. Those clouds will start to break. It's not going to be gray all day, but certainly holding on to some clouds, especially early on. Temperatures are going to be hovering right around 60 degrees if you are along the coast. A little bit warmer than that. Borrego Springs at 68. Mount Laguna, you'll top off at 37, so it is going to be a little chilly for you. Let's play this out on future radar. We don't really have too much to talk about, right? I told you we're gradually tapering off when it comes to the rain and when it comes to the snow as this storm heads on east. Now here for your next 5 days along the coast, temperatures are going to stay relatively steady. We don't really have too many change-ups happening. Friday, Saturday, we are still in the 60s, though you will see a little bit of a bump here Saturday at 63, continuing to rise here by the end of the weekend with abundant sunshine there on Sunday with a high of 68. Further inland, you'll see a similar trend when it comes to temperatures. Inland 62 on Wednesday. Friday, we're up to 65. Then by the weekend, we see the 70s again. 70 on Saturday, 75 by Sunday. So a warm up certainly on the way, and you'll feel it too, even across the mountains. While the numbers are lower, it is still quite impressive. Wednesday 37, and then by the weekend we're back up to 57, so that's a 20-degree drop there. And even across the deserts, you'll see a steady rise back up to the 80s by the end of the weekend. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Bree Guy.
Hair salons are known for helping people with their outer beauty. KPBS reporter Melissa May explains how stylists at a salon in Coronado are trained to help their clients feel better on the inside as well.
Salon on First in Coronado might look like your average hair salon. Stylists can be seen washing, cutting, coloring, and drying clients' hair. But there's something unique about this salon, and it's proudly displayed on the wall.
The vision to be able to tie the loneliness epidemic in helping with salons and hairstylists, because unless you don't have hair, everybody goes to the salon once a month, sometimes twice a month, once every couple of months.
Owner Marilyn Klisser says she's proud to be the first official certified community care salon in the country.
It's a salon that is not only interested in the outer physical beauty and the hair, but also taking care of the community and making sure that they connect on certain levels with each client when they come into the salon, so that they leave feeling better than they ever could have before they walked in.
This grassroots effort of combating the loneliness epidemic is San Diego psychologist Dr. Robert Metcalf's vision.
There are a lot of people now in our society who don't have another human being to share authentically what's happening and how they're feeling. So, they maybe have an opportunity for a few minutes with their stylist just to vent that.
He worked with Klisser to develop the criteria for the certification.
They have to learn active listening so that when their client's in the chair, they know how to listen to help them reset their nervous system.
He taught how to listen. The way that he listened to me, I felt very seen and very heard in just a short amount of time.
Stylists like Lauren Pace are now trained to help clients process their emotions and verbalize their feelings.
I feel like everyone at some point is kind of trying to figure out their purpose and what they can contribute or give back. And doing something like this, getting certified to help the people that come into the salon or that are in our chairs, it just gives more meaning to what we do.
Along with learning listening skills, a salon must also.
They have to go out and actually build a directory of community connection resources. And these could be groups and clubs and stuff around the community.
And
commit to doing a minimum of one free, open to the community event at the salon where they can maybe learn something or participate in a fun activity and have a chance to mingle with other people and connect.
Klisser and Metcalf say this is not about turning hairstylists into therapists.
but it's about being able to truly listen to the client and make them feel heard and understood. And so this training opened my eyes to new techniques to be able to listen and communicate even more effectively with my clients.
Like Coronado resident Sparks Moeller.
Marilyn and I, one conversation leads to another. And again, we've been through, high times, low times, and Marilyn caught me at a particularly low time and was able to kind of prompt me to make a small change in my life, which turned out to have marvelous results.
Metcalf's goal is to get 1% of salons in the country, about 10,000, to join this effort to combat the loneliness epidemic. Melissa May, KPBS News.
And here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. NPR's Morning Edition will have the latest on Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s confirmation hearing for Secretary of Health and Human Services. And KPBS Midday Edition is celebrating the start of the Lunar New Year. To get the latest from KPBS delivered right into your inbox, we have a variety of newsletters, including daily headlines, KPBS Arts, streaming picks, and our North County focus. Go to kpbs.org and look for the newsletters section at the top of the screen. And that's also where you can find our stories tonight, kpbs.org. That's going to do it for us. I'm Maya Tripolsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.